Hey, it's Jeff Zito, and thank you for listening to the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. Currently number 3 on the Apple Podcast Music Interviews chart. Please subscribe. We'd love a 5-star rating, and please leave a review. Past guests and episodes are online at celebrityjobber.com. And sometimes I want to introduce similar podcasts, which I think you might enjoy listening to as well. And this podcast is called Takin' a Walk, and the host is my good friend Buzz Knight. And in this episode, he speaks with Our Lady Peace frontman Raine Maida, which I really liked and wanted to share with you. So check it out. It's Takin' a Walk with my good friend Buzz Knight.
Taking a walk.
Like, music saved me as a kid, parents divorced at 14, shipped off to a school 2 hours away from home when I was young and feeling really isolated. And music was the one thing that made me feel, connected, kind of like what religion does for a lot of people.
Welcome to another episode of Taking a Walk. I'm your host, Buzz Knight. This is the show where we get into deep conversations. We stroll through decades of music, meaning, and reinvention with Raine Maida, frontman of the legendary Our Lady Peace. From the echoing chords of Clumsy to trailblazing new musical frontiers with technology, Raine's journey is anything but ordinary. What keeps an alt-rock icon curious after 3 decades, and in a world changing faster than ever, how does he keep his creative spirit freshly tuned? Let's clear our minds, find out, after some words from our sponsors. Next with Raine. Taking a walk. Hey, Raine, thanks for being on Taking a Walk.
Love it. Very excited to be here.
So we call it Taking a Walk, and we like talking about music history. If you could take a walk with somebody in music history, living or dead, who would you like to take a walk with, and maybe where would you take that walk?
Today we're at Jones Beach, just outside of Manhattan, and I was always enamored with Jeff Buckley playing shows at Chenet in Manhattan, and that whole journey of him working in originals, but always playing a lot of covers, and just how that time and his kind of transcendence, I would have loved to been a part of, that early journey of Jeff. I mean, it didn't last very long, obviously. And it's not because I know there's a documentary or a film coming out, but it's really just my admiration for that kind of grind and putting in the work early on. It's so critical to musicians' career. And I feel like that doesn't happen as much anymore. It's just a different business.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's one that we'll never forget, who's got such a legacy and such a story and such a, commitment to his craft.
Yeah. I saw a thing, Chris Cornell's gone as well, which is terrifying, but it was Chris talking about how great a guitar player Jeff was. I mean, he was an exquisite singer, but the chord structures he chose and the notes and his guitar playing, really, he was a master.
Congrats on 30 years of Our Lady Peace. Can you believe it? Where has the time gone?
It's really scary. I mean, was talking to someone the other day. I remember we opened for the Ramones in Jersey back when we were just starting in like 96. And gosh, like that seems like it wasn't even that long ago, but it was. It was 30 years ago.
So after more than 30 years, what keeps the creative fires burning for you personally when you step onto a stage or you go into the studio?
I mean, we're always creating new music, and I think that's the one thread that keeps this thing together. I know there's some bands that are able just to kind of rest on their laurels and legacy and can do that really well and tour and all that stuff. I think without new music, I'm not sure if I'm doing this, to be honest. I think it really has to come to with the thought of there was new music released and we want to showcase that. Or there's new music coming and there's ideas that I have and I'm writing and I know that that's forthcoming. So that's the driver. But I think the ability to stay creative is it the idea of being more of a robot, just playing stuff that you used to play, and that's kind of where it starts and ends. Doesn't really work for me.
Well, I've heard you say that you're always focused on tomorrow, to your
Yeah.
point, instead of nostalgia. And but is there a time where you allow yourself to sort of look back and really contemplate the band's legacy?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just more of just gratitude, trying to wake up with gratitude every day that we still get to do this and have fans and have new fans come out. We played in Maine last night, and we had a bunch of fans in the first row with like, one girl wearing R, another person wearing Lady, and then someone else Peace, and then a bunch of other fans, and they were young. And I was like, this is the great thing about the paradigm shifts in the music business, where anyone can find you now. And I think that's probably a bit of another driver, knowing that there's new fans out there that would probably never see us. I mean, we keep hearing that. I see that on DMs every day. It's like, wow, someone introduced you to me. I've never had the chance to see you. I just saw you last night. It was amazing. So that keeps us going too, for sure.
So you can reflect on classic albums like Clumsy and Spiritual Machines, and then now you see this new generation of fans connecting with this music. And then when you go out, in particular, out on the road, you see this, and it really must be just, heartwarming.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I see with my, I have 3 boys, teenage boys, and like my youngest, one day we get in the car, and he obviously takes control of like the music. And he puts a Deftones song on. I'm like, whoa. Like before that, it was like always, not Deftones. And I was like, Sal, like, where did you hear like one of my favorite bands of all time? And, it was TikTok or whatever, which is fine, but it's that ability for music to just hit people on all these different levels now. And I'm appreciative of it.
So what inspires you lyrically these days, and how has your approach to songwriting differed at all, if it's different now compared to the 90s and early 2000s?
I mean, I think songwriting, I've kind of gone back to more, gone through I have a studio at my home in Los Angeles, tricked out with everything you can want. But the idea of sitting with an acoustic guitar, and I have an old like triple odd 1923 Martin, picking that up in the morning with a glass of, a cup of coffee or tea, like that to me is probably the most pure relationship I have with music. On a very just visceral level, like if I'm strumming some chords and start singing and something comes out that's evocative to me, an idea starting there is the most pure. So I try to really stick to that, and I like it. I've come full circle because I've done it everywhere. I've written songs in multitude of kind of experimental fashions, and starting with beats and different things. But the idea of just acoustic and piano as well. We have an old upright in the control room that I use a lot as well, and that's just like so tangible, because if it works like that, if it makes you feel something just like that, then it's probably worth pursuing as an actual song and finishing.
Our Lady Peace, known for these I would say deeper, more poetic lyrics. Who are the folks over your life that have had an impact and an influence in terms of the way you communicate as a songwriter?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved poetry, so I kind of grew up with the beat poets, from Ferlinghetti to all the more famous ones. But the idea of condensing, even from what I think the beat poets were great at grabbing your attention with phrases. Music has to go a step further, where it's more condensed. You don't only have so many lines and syllables within a verse or a chorus to grab someone's attention or evoke a thought or an emotion. So I always saw it as a challenge like that. And Leonard Cohen was a big influence to me. bands like REM for sure, Neil Young, they were able to say things in these little blurbs that just were like movies, even though it was just a sentence or two, in some sort of prose or something. So I've always looked at it. It's like, how do you create a movie for someone in 3 minutes?
Can you walk us through the making of a recent song, maybe that in the end result, it surprised you where it went and where the message went and how the output finally concluded?
Yeah, I mean, we just recorded a bunch of new music with a producer named Nick Raskilinis, who's Deftones, Foo Fighters in Nashville. There was a song called "I Want to Be Your Drug" that I've had for probably 10 years. And the lyric to it really meant something to me. It was not fleshed out, but we demoed it up eight or 9 years ago. Really didn't work out. I always liked my first, just the demo that I did by myself. But it's funny, when we got into the room with Nick, he was like, "There's something here. I'm not sure I like how you guys are presenting it." But he said the same thing. He's like, "There's something in the lyric. I want to be your drug. I want to be the air you breathe," and all these different, like he said, like it's. I think he actually said this. It's like it's creating a movie, but I don't know the way we've arranged the music that it's supporting that film in my head. And so we kind of broke that song down to where it was more of an upbeat song, kind of like a Springsteen, like Born to Run. But then we broke it down into a halftime thing. So all of a sudden the lyrics were much more upfront, because the band, it wasn't fighting with the music, or it wasn't part of the music. And I think the first few lines, and this is to me always the kind of indicator, "I got a feeling you lost your faith in me, take your pound of flesh, it's all that I got left, I hope you find relief." That first stanza of lyrics was like, this has to be a song that I get to sing somewhere, because it's so meaningful to me. The idea of taking a pound of flesh and trying to give someone else some relief from a sacrifice that you make. I was just like, I don't get to say things like that too often. So we stuck with it, and now we're performing live, and it ended up being a really powerful song. So you have to believe in the fact that, I think as a lyricist, you're not given like thousands of great lyrics. It's very sporadic. And once you hit on something that means something, you got to mine it till it finds its way to a song that everyone can hear.
I think there's another theme. I think you would agree: perseverance in the writing, both for the band, certainly in the writing, but also in life. Perseverance. Is there one challenge that you can relate that pushed you to your limits, and what did it teach you?
Song Clumsy was one of those songs. It went through multiple. We probably recorded that song 6 times in 6 different versions of that song, and it got so frustrating to where I was ready to give up on it. Like, I knew there was stuff there, but you just, at some point, you're like, man, how far do you go with something? How much do you commit to an idea where it's just not revealing itself to be something good or even close to great? And we were really close to bailing on that song. I'm glad we didn't. Somehow we stuck it out, and it ended up being an important song for us. But yeah, that was one of those, when I look back on it, literally could have gone, it was 50, like flip of a coin. We're done with this thing, or we're gonna take another stab at it. And that last effort was what Clumsy became.
We'll be back with more of the Takin' a Walk podcast in a bit. Now, if you're looking for a rock and roll oriented podcast, we invite you to check out The Imbalanced History of Rock and Roll. The history's fascinating. There's so much to uncover. The Imbalanced History of Rock and Roll explores moments in time, albums, songs, events, and people who had an impact on the history of rock and roll. They keep rock and roll fun. The Imbalanced History of Rock and Roll. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to the Takin' a Walk podcast.
Tell me how it felt when you brought Mike Turner back for the Spiritual Machines tour, and what did it reveal about the band's chemistry and the overall spirit of collaboration?
That's a great question. I think it's the latter, what you just said. The idea of collaboration is so key, and I think you have to always pay homage to that. And Mike was key in bringing that book, The Age of Spiritual Machines by Kurzweil, into that Spiritual Machine, recording session for that album. And I was blown away by the conceptual nature of Kurzweil making all these predictions that maybe even back then we thought were a little far-fetched, but obviously he was 93% right, from like cochlear implants to the idea of driverless vehicles, which we obviously talking about AI. Like that was something that was so in the forefront for Ray back then and the band and that record, but no one would talk about AI. So just by virtue of Mike bringing that in and being a part of that record, to do Spiritual Machines 2 and move that chapter 2 decades forward and look at Kurzweil's next set of predictions, it wouldn't have seemed right to play those shows without Mike there. It was just, he's just intrinsically tied to that. I mean, he's tied to the band forever as well, but the idea of his, like you said, collaboration on that record specifically and with Ray's book was pretty critical. So it was amazing to have him on stage for those shows.
One of the core principles of you and the band are your social activism and your philanthropic approach to the world as an activist. I think that's fair to say. Has it shaped the music in a certain way as well?
Yeah, I think it puts a weight on it, just in terms of I would never call music important, but just in terms of understanding what it does for other people. Like music saved me as a kid, parents divorced at 14, shipped off to a school 2 hours away from home when I was young and feeling really isolated. And music was the one thing that made me feel connected, kind of like what religion does for a lot of people. And so understanding that, I think, is part of it. And I think your experience as a human, like getting outside of your community, outside of your state or country or province, like being able to travel with War Child to, whether it was like Iraq or Darfur or other places in Africa, I think you start to understand, like Sudan, it's like, man, there's a much bigger world, and to feel like a global citizen and start to understand that concept from like a 30,000 foot view is so key in terms of what we bring back to our songs and making sure that, I don't know, I think we see ourselves as global citizens, as artists as well. And that's really key in terms of how it drives the music and some of the message. If that makes sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. We also produce this other podcast called Music Saved Me, coincidentally. So we focus on that core aspect of, what it does for the world, what it does for the artist, obviously, what it does for human connection. So it's a critical force in our life. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, I mean, and it was funny, like this is on a music level, but the first time I really understood that, like the cliche of music is universal, like we've all heard that, but it truly is. I remember the first time we played in France at this little club outside of Paris, and people were singing Clumsy. Then I would go to talk to them afterwards, and they couldn't speak English at all. And that just all of a sudden is like, wow, okay, the universality of music is very real. And then, like I said, traveling to, places like Darfur and talking to people there, and these like, and people are displaced, like unspeakable sadness. But it was like a little boom box. God, like sometimes it was Lionel Richie they were playing. And it didn't matter. It was just the spirit of music that lifted their souls in these incredibly difficult and treacherous times that without music, it's a different scenario. It's a different outcome, maybe even.
In today's rapidly changing landscape, you mentioned AI earlier, technology, social justice. How do you see the role of musicians and artists evolving?
I actually see it. I see a real strong component of music going back to basics, where the craft, the artistry, the woodshedding it takes to become a master at your instrument, be it piano, vocals, drums, too, but whatever that is, I feel like there's a new appreciation for that. And then there's also going to be this other wave of, AI produced music, and the divergence, I think, will help you appreciate one or the other. Like if that's what you're looking for, is just something to kind of numb you, and it could be anything, and maybe you don't even want an artist attached with it, because that always has like a different level of commitment when you know it's this person that was from here or whatever. Maybe AI music serves that value, but I do think there's this real craft of musicianship coming back, and I'm seeing it, kind of, I hate to sound stupid, like on the streets of LA, but I do see it with a lot of young musicians that are so talented and have really put in the time at an early age, whether you believe in like 10,000 hours, whatever the concept might be. But these kids are working at their craft, and they don't actually care about social media. They're not buying into all the other stuff, the TikTok things, and trying to, blow up a career from something like that. They're concerned about being great at their instrument, and that's inspiring.
I'm fascinated with the various projects that have been sort of partnerships that you've been involved with that are new tech relationships. Maybe talk a little bit about that, the NFTs and some of the other projects that have, I would say, changed, enhanced your relationship with your fans and the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I from the beginning, I remember we were making a record with Bob Rock in Maui, and the whole thing with Napster, and obviously Metallica was a big deal. So you start talking about that kind of stuff, and it just felt like, okay, there's a shift happening here. Like, we were paying for music on Apple, but like the Napster thing was happening, and okay, where do we fit in? What does that do to us as, recording, touring musicians? And I just felt the idea of like supporting the independent musician, because I really felt like there was going to be this movement towards independence, because we could own our stuff again, which is great. But fast forward like 15 years, I've been doing tech. The key component for an artist these days is to have that direct relationship with your fan. The idea of building fan relationships on third-party platforms is very volatile. Happened with MySpace. We all were psyched about, wow, we can talk to fans. We can see, hey, there was 192 people in St. Louis that want Our Lady Peace to come play there. This is like early data, in the sense of, oh God, like this is cool. I'm really close to these people now. And then MySpace goes away, so do all those relationships. We've continued to like bet on all these, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or any other platform, which are great for marketing. But if you can't connect directly to your fans, you're in trouble moving forward. I truly believe that. And I feel like that there's enough information out there. I look at it basically my company Fan Drop right now, which makes that connection at a live setting, because that's where you have your audience. My thing is that our ethos and mantra at Fan Drop is if they came to see you, do not let them leave anonymous. Everybody else has their data, whether it's a ticketing company or promoter, or if it's a merch company, or everyone else is grabbing data. But as an artist, we've always just felt like, oh, it's amazing to play, and that's all we need to do. It's not true anymore. You need to create that direct connection. So Fan Drop makes that super simple. And that's really the mantra, is to help artists build their communities. How you communicate and what you do afterwards is really up to the artist. We try not to involve ourselves with that, because that's a very personal relationship. But the hardest thing is just getting that first connection. So Fan Drop does that. We use geolocation and some really cool rewards kind of features and components within our tech. But yeah, just don't let them leave a show anonymous.
I have to think there's some kind of real surprise and delight theory here that you're applying as well, right?
Yeah, we have some cool stuff. We have like a digital scratch and win. So, on the Canadian tour that we did, we were giving away, we're in these big arenas. I get it. There's like American Express Platinum seats that some people can afford, but then there's the ones for like $85 in the nosebleeds that, people just can't get close. So the idea of democratizing a space, I think, is really powerful. So that's what Fan Drop did. Type in fandrop.com, you go straight to the OLP. It was called Encore Experience. So 10 people every night, no matter where you're sitting, one chance to be on stage with us for the encore and feel what it felt like to be, literally right on stage with us and looking out to the fans and stuff. So there was that. We do just tons of different things. The scratch and win is cool. We also let people vote on the encore songs in real time, so you can see those votes go up and down. We were selling, like limited edition hoodies and T-shirts just to the people, because it was almost like saying my view is like, if you're coming to an RLDP show at this point, I consider you a super fan. It's my responsibility to make you feel that way, and Fan Drop really helps do that.
It's awesome. That's so cool. So let's lay out the rest of 2025. It's not going to be a slow rest of the year. I could certainly tell. You got a lot of dates that you guys are out on the road with, and tell me what else is going to be going on.
We finish up in Vegas on August 31st, and then I actually have a book and an album coming out with my wife. We have a project together. She's an artist, songwriter as well. Going to be finishing the OLP album in the fall as well, and then looking. I can't believe it, but looking towards a big 2026 when this year's already felt like a whirlwind. So just keep that train on the tracks, I guess, so to speak.
Oh, I love it. Well, in closing, back to the Taking a Walk theme. So if you could take a walk with your younger self from 1992 as you're just starting the band, what advice would you give to him?
Actually just wrote this chapter in this book that my wife are doing, and it's really about being in the moment. I think I was so focused on what's next. It's like, you get a call to open up for the Ramones in Poughkeepsie, and it was incredible, but I don't remember it. Like, I was so like, okay, that's amazing. What are we doing next? Like, what's the next show? And so I remember standing next to the guys, in the Ramones, like Joey even, and man, I didn't take it in. I remember when Robert Plant, heard our song Starseed in his limo in New York, and all of a sudden, we were touring. We were in like Boston playing like the Middle East, a little club, and our tour manager runs in. He's like, "We're tearing down. We're not playing the show tonight. We have to drive to Indianapolis to open up for the first Page and Plan reunion." Didn't take it in. Like, Robert Plant came up to me and was telling me how much he loved that first record, Naveed, and he was like, I really relate to the lyrics and the sounds, and I was like, but I didn't take it in. I wasn't present. So that would be, if I could be walking with my younger self, I would be like, man, just stop. Take this moment in, listen to Robert, listen to what he's saying, ask him questions. I missed some of those opportunities, unfortunately.
Oh, I got chills. I've missed so many myself.
Right, I know. That's life. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but I mean, and then when I think about what I'm doing now and being able to talk to folks like you on the podcast, I go, man, I'm pretty damn lucky. So
these are the moments I think we all can appreciate it more, and getting to do something more long form like this is so key, right?
That's wonderful. Raine, thank you so much, man. I'm honored to
my pleasure.
have you on. This was a blast, man.
Love it. Thank you so much.